And welcome to another edition of Hoops Hitting Gems podcast. I'm your host, David Jones. Tonight, we have a special segment. We're going to talk exclusively sports medicine and injury prevention. And we have Dr. Erin Hassler, our noted guest. As usual, she's no longer a guest. She's welcome to the house at a regular time. She just walks in whenever she wants to. She's with the Sports Factory here in Atlanta as well as Houston. How you doing today?
I'm well, Dave. How are you?
Man, I'm half crazy. I've been all over the place. Got me a little rest to get ready for the show. You were all over the place this weekend. I was, and as we're past the halfway point of the basketball season, we always talk sports medicine and injury prevention because even like this weekend, we're starting to see some injuries, crop up on a couple people. Sometimes it's due to overuse with some of these guys playing 3-4 times a week in post-grad as well as training, so they're not getting enough rest. So you're starting to see some of those overuse injuries come up as well. And, tonight we're going to have you talk about a number of things. So the spotlight is all yours.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And how did your event go overall? How did it go?
It went very well. Like I said, went pretty smooth. The little small minor hiccups are event director things that, you handle and you move forward from there. But from an injury standpoint, thank goodness nobody was severely injured or anything to that point. We had, the cramps, here and there. We had one or two people get a cut maybe on their wrist or, something like that. And they may have to come out the game and get the first aid kit. But the biggest one was someone had a boxer fracture. Is that correct?
Right. That's right.
And, for people that don't know what a boxer fracture is, educate them like you educated me.
Okay, so a boxer's fracture is exactly that. It's something that would occur usually from a punch or a collision. It could happen anywhere, but like let's say if an athlete were to try to catch themselves on a fall and their fists hit the ground, right? They went closed hand instead of open. Okay. Or you come down, you call for a foul, you go up, you try to get an and one, you don't get it, whatever that is, and you come down and the emotions are flaring, You punch that padded wall, or that wall you think is padded. It's not padded the way you thought it was. And what'll happen is the knuckle, because you can see knuckles here, right? The knuckle will drop down because a fracture occurs right across the middle in the metacarpal.
Okay.
So right through the shaft, it'll crack, dropping that knuckle down. So that's what happened.
So when that happens, how long are they out? What type of therapy do they go through?
It really just depends. If it's a slight crack, without a splinter, how chicken bones are splinter off. Yes. It's not a splinter or something like that. It's just a straight crack. That could be a few weeks. They'll typically cast it, and you're a ball player. You have to be able to grip.
Yes.
Right. In football, if you're a lineman, we could cast you like this and let you play.
Yes. You've seen that plenty of times. Right? They get the club.
Yeah, you can play with a club, but if you're a ball player, you need each and every finger to do what it's supposed to do. Okay. So That makes it a little bit difficult. And they would probably want to cast them versus bracing them, because you brace them, they can take it off.
Yes.
You cast it, you shut them down.
Okay, so if they're casted in, let's just say it's what you would call maybe a severe break. How long are we talking?
Oh, I mean, when I'm saying a few weeks, I'm saying 4 weeks, right? Okay. But if it's something severe, they might have to put a plate in.
Oh,
right. What if they have to put a plate in to allow that to heal properly? Now you're looking at 6 to 8 weeks, maybe more.
So you're talking surgery?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, when they talk about composure, and being able to control emotions, it's not just because somebody's watching you and, it may show up in in how they recruit you. It's really about, it's your safety too.
Okay.
People throw things and they kick things. And, okay, you kick something, you broke a toe. Yeah. So that's kind of what happened. And I think the young man will be fine. And he was able to get X-rays and be treated. So
okay. So, yeah. So as we jump into the show, we had a couple segments that we thought were important. And I know, this was a situation that was somewhat sensitive, and, America caught a glimpse of it because it was scary in the same sentence, was the young man from my hometown of Pittsburgh, PA, Damar Hamlin, who still plays, he's employed by the Bills still right now, where he had the heart attack on the field. And I know you wanted to talk about that some more.
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of people are really, really, their attention is brought to that subject, but I don't think they know all the components behind it. I'm still hearing people ask about pre-existing conditions. Did he have a heart attack because something else was wrong? Did he have a heart attack because it was a vaccine situation? It was none of those things. He had a heart attack because he actually had an impact, a direct blow to the chest. It's called commotio cordis, and it's something that usually happens when there is a projectile object.
Okay.
But it could happen in any kind of sport that would result in a collision.
Gotcha.
So let's name them. Like, what do you have? You got soccer, right? They run into each other all the time. You got soccer, you got baseball, you got lacrosse,
hockey.
So now we talk about things that actually have a projectile object. You have hockey, volleyball, basketball, baseball, ball. I mean, there's so many things that have projectile objects, but even if there were not a projectile object, what if it were somebody's shoulder right into the chest?
Yeah.
What if you fell on somebody's knee going down, trying to catch yourself? You fall on somebody else's knee right in the chest. It's the same thing. So what happened with number 3, Damar Hamlin, what happened with him was the impact happened right between the heartbeat. Okay, so when you watch on the monitor and they say, okay, you can see the peaks go up and the peaks go down, and we all know what it looks like on a movie when they show something flatline, right?
Yes.
There's this peak and valley, and they are labeled like alphabets. So PQRST, and they go up and they go down, and he got caught right between one of the peaks.
Okay.
And in that moment, that's what caused the arrest. So it's not just, oh my gosh, he was breathing and then he wasn't. He got hit at an inopportune moment.
Gotcha. And that's really, as you're talking about this, a lot of times, it's this segment, I'm full of questions. And how often, because nobody ever thinks about that. Like, I know this may not have been the first time it ever happened. It's probably rare, but the point is, this can happen.
Yeah, it can happen. So I'm looking at a study from 2002. And including T-balls, you're looking at 61%, they took a survey. Commotio cord is caused by sports equipment, including T-balls. So T-balls, softballs, hockey pucks, lacrosse balls, cricket balls, soccer, hockey sticks, and tennis balls. But see, they didn't include basketball. They didn't include football. And they didn't include, this was just sports equipment, but they didn't include just contact, just physical contact.
Mm-hmm.
Any of those things, could have been the reason for that. But you're looking at like 61% were from lacrosse balls, 16 from softballs. Softballs are huge.
Yeah, softballs are big. Mm-hmm.
Softballs are big. And when you're playing softball, whether it's female or a male team, the only people that have a chest plate
catcher
are the catchers and the umpires. No one else is protected.
Boy, and you would think, man, I mean, and that's because the catchers and umpires are involved almost in every play because, they're pitched to, and, because of, foul tips and stuff like that, like we're talking about, that increases their chances. But, like a second baseman or especially an outfielder, that almost would be so rare for it to happen unless they just completely miss the fly ball. Hit them in the chest with like a line drive. Maybe an infielder, I could see it a little bit, a hard hit ball, and sometimes it's a bad hop off the infield, and those balls do hit up and sometimes hit you all over the place. Yes.
It's a shorter distance. Distance, and if it bounces off of something else, you kind of cut the impact. You're cutting some of the force. The angles change, so you cut some of the force out. But infield,
maybe the pitcher with a line drive.
Yeah, but the pitcher can't pitch with a pad on, Pitcher
and they can't. And that's exactly what you're saying. So basically, probably the pitcher would outside the catcher and umpire would be the most susceptible because when they're pitching in excess of 90 to 100 miles an hour, sometimes when people do make contact and hit it back, it's coming off that bat at 106 to 110. So in 60 feet, 6 inches, if you I've seen a number of pitchers get hit with line drives, back at them. I can see that instance.
Yeah,
I can definitely see that, and I can speak that because I used to play
baseball.
It happened to me, but I got hit in the shoulder, thank goodness.
But it hurt for a while.
Yeah.
I bet it hurt for a while. So to go back to the cause of it, it's really that forceful impact. But let's think about if it happened in other places, right? If that ball hits somewhere else. I mean, the thing is, he got hit between the electrical signal, right? But what if he got hit somewhere where he wasn't protected by the rib cage, by a bony protector, right?
Eye, head,
right? I mean, you got bones here, but if you're going line drive, if you're going and somebody collides right into it, I've had baseball players hit in the face. I've had softball players. I had a softball player get hit right to the forehead because the net had a gap. There was a split in the net, and it went right through the net at a practice.
Yes, during BP.
Pitching and and the batting cage and stuff. And her, beautiful young lady, and she ended up having to have a metal plate put into her face. They had to go in this way. No, permanent. No, they had to peel back and insert a plate. So, there's so many things that could happen at any given time. And I think one of the biggest conversations that I want to come off of this unfortunate incident, and it's fortunate because he's still here. There are some other people that were not able to make it. But the conversation I want to see happen is, how can we protect our kids? how can we protect our athletes? How can we get an athletic trainer in these spaces so that we don't have to hope and pray that someone shows up and EMS gets there in time?
But yes. Now, here's the problem with that, and everybody screams the same thing. And I know you're getting ready to speak about that, especially when you're talking public school. Private schools usually do have an athletic trainer. Sometimes you'll see a lot
Sometimes.
of you'll see the public schools a lot of times the district will share a trainer,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not always good. So, like you said,
Well,
sometimes
I
it
just
may
wrote a
be.
letter. I just wrote a letter
Mhm.
because my son's school.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
and to your point, yes, some districts do a great job. Some districts do. Some you're you got your fingers crossed if something happens.
I'm going to tell you what part of the problem is, and this is nationwide. So the biggest issue is you have more. It's a numbers game. You have more athletes than you do coverage. So it doesn't matter if you have a lot of money if there aren't a lot of us.
Hmm.
Now,
Yes.
now what will happen is the places where you're able to pay athletic trainers well, they will migrate to those jobs.
Of
And the
course.
places where you're not able to pay them well, they will abandon those jobs. But what's happening now is people are abandoning them altogether. Two
Why?
things happen. The pandemic happened, and
Okay.
but all the sports didn't stop.
Okay.
Remember, the NFL
Yes.
went through, and the NBA went through, and the WNBA, they were still able to play. But athletic trainers across the country were furloughed and let go. But we still had athletes to take care of. So we were the first ones to get cut. Coaches didn't get fired. There were some, some coaches that were put on furlough, but those people were let go and put down.
Hmm.
And then they went and found other things to do. They're like, you know what? I'm gonna find something else to do. And so some of those athletic trainers didn't re-enter the workforce. They found other things they want to do, or better situations. And then what's happening now is students that are coming out of school in athletic training education programs they're not getting the real deal.
Okay.
So when they go into the industry, it doesn't match what they learned in class. It doesn't match what they saw in class. Like, they have a limited amount of time to get through school. They switched everything to a master's minimum. You have to have a master's to become an athletic trainer now, which I get it, but it shot us in the foot. Like, we're modeling after like the PTs,
Physical therapy, yes.
right, and
Occupational
nurses,
therapy,
right,
yes,
and
and
nurses.
nursing.
You could have a registered nurse and they not have a bachelor's. Now you have to have a bachelor's. You could be a physical therapist and still have a master's. Now they make them have a doctorate. So for us, we could come out with a bachelor's, have a really long career. Now they're making it a master's. So the programs are shorter, but their rotations are shorter too. So when I came out of school, when I was going through school, I worked a full football season.
Mm-hmm.
I understood preseason. I understood during the season. I understood postseason. I understood off season. All the pieces to it. I understood if we went to the playoffs, I got to work overtime, even if the schedule didn't say that.
Yeah.
And the way that some of the programs are set up now is that they're not afforded the opportunity to get the full life experience. They're limited to the number of hours they can work a week, and they really, really get the book information, but they don't get the practical part. So when they go into these workspaces, they're like, I don't really like it. Not really working. And they're not paying me enough, so I'm going to leave. And so a lot of people are shifting out to do physical therapy. So we're still going to be short athletic trainers.
Now I have a question, and this is really an opinion. Instead of going doctorate, master's, doesn't it make sense to me to go, okay, you can get it with your bachelor's, and if, let's say, you want competency, increase the clinical hours? Wouldn't that make
Too late? It's too late though. Because they have I mean, all of that transition happened over the last 4 years. So there are no more bachelor's programs. Some of them have turned into a hybrid of 3-2, where you go 3 years and the last 2 are part of the master's, but all of them are gone. And along with it, over the last 10 years, 10 to 12 years, what's happened is there's only one, and it vacillates between these two. It's usually North Carolina A&T, North Carolina Central, and Bethune-Cookman have been the only 2 HBCUs to have viable certification programs through our national organization. Now it's only a Bethune-Cookman. So you can't even come out of an HBCU and become an athletic trainer unless you go to a mainstream, predominantly white master's program.
Wow. Okay.
So there's a shortage. There's an extreme shortage, and it puts everyone's child at a disadvantage. And your event wasn't even secondary schools. Your event was
postgrad.
Well, they're not part of a school.
Correct.
So some are, and so some are like an IMG would have. They would have coverage, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
IMG has coverage. OTE has coverage.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of these smaller programs won't have it.
Correct. Yeah.
So because you'd have to be able to pay well enough to have somebody that's willing to travel.
And that's a budget constraint.
That's a budget constraint.
Man, so what do we do in this instance? And I'm glad you just brought this up as we're talking limited budget and shortage. How do we get people more involved? Even before we go more involved, what's the average? Because this is always going to be the biggest question. What's the average starting salary for an athletic trainer?
Oh, so it varies so much. Let's say you're at a small school and they're trying to cover some extra sports. They might offer a GA position. So you're looking at maybe 20,000, 30,000, but you might have to stay in the dorm.
Yes, as a GA, yes.
As a GA, you might have to stay on campus.
Mm-hmm.
There are some residencies and there are some internship opportunities where you could still get paid the same way, but those are not full salaries. But there are salaried full-time athletic trainers in this country that make under 40.
Okay. Which leads to, those are full-time salary.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times the best thing I see is you see your ATs, your athletic trainers go contract because they like to work for multiples at a time. So, But is it that they like it or is it that they have to? I'm going to argue the second. I would say they'd have to.
I would say you have to. I can speak for myself. I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak for myself. I have at one point had 5 things going at the same time.
Because he had to have that multiple streams of income. Yeah,
I had to because it didn't matter how long I worked. It didn't matter. My salary was my salary, and ends didn't meet, and I still had to work.
But wait, okay, so hold on. You just hit something right there. So you're telling me I'm salaried, and of course I definitely understand the salary respects, but that's almost labor laws because, man, when you think about that, there's a possibility if you're full-time, you could be doing 60, 70, 80 hours a week.
Yep.
And
I've gone 57 days with no day off at some point. And then I just had a day off and then I started all over again.
But as a salaried person is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that not that doesn't work right there.
And when you're in the collegiate setting, it can really, you can, because you're going to have Sunday treatment, you're going to travel, like you'll be a part of all those things. And if you're covering multiple sports, then things will overlap.
Oh, and absolutely, because let's look at it like this, and I'm speaking from my own perspective. Trainers have to usually be some of the first people there because you have to get prepped up. You have to do pre-wrap and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If
water,
lodges, water, all of that stuff. So let's just say let's say it's a Saturday game, and it's a Saturday game. Let's say at 2:00.
Okay. This is a school situation, right?
Yeah, let's say it's a school.
Are we talking basketball or football?
We'll go basketball because I
Okay, let's go
only
back.
imagine for
I'll
football.
tell you
Then
how
you're
it changes.
talking, yeah. So for basketball, let's say you got 15 guys on a team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say, for the sake of argument, the game is at 2:00 on a Saturday.
Okay.
That means you got to be there at what, 10, 11, right?
Basketball's a little different. You could get away with. You said 2:00 game. Get away with 11:30.
Okay, 11:30, right? So, the guys come in early for their pre-wrap to get their ankles taped and everything else, whether, and I speak for myself, to get that shoulder brace a lot of times because, I had a shoulder injury and was still playing. So, you go through your little pre-game therapy as well. You're stretching sometimes. It'll require, if you're coming off injury, you got to come in early and do the ice bath or whatever the case may be, to get iced down. Let me ask this. And so basically the physicians do the cortisone shots, right?
Oh yeah. Physicians have to do that. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when it was an injury where, you're
talking about college now.
I'm talking college. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. So if you're talking college, then you're gonna be there before 11:30. You'll be there way before 11:30. Yeah.
Okay. But if it's high school,
high school you can get away with being there later. No, college, it's a full day. It's not because you got to shoot around in the morning.
Yep.
That shoot around in the morning. You leave, you go eat, maybe take a nap, come back up there 2 hours, 2.5, 3 hours before game time. And that's where you would get in that treatment. And then you got to go back on the court and you do a whole nother warm up. And then you got game time.
Gotcha. Now for football, I can only imagine. Well, football, you got a staff though. You don't have just one trainer.
Everywhere.
For college?
You looking at one? You looking at one right here.
Wait. So college, you're talking usually a 60 to 70 man roster, right? Mm-hmm. And that's for college because they have more players than pro football because, a lot of guys progress and stuff like that. So let's just say you got about a 70 to 80 man roster for football. And you're talking one person?
I've been one person for an entire D1 program. 17 teams.
Okay. So if that's
I'm not saying it's right. But it is that's what it is. And so the SWAC this year, there were times when the SWAC had schools that weren't covered. And there are other programs around the country that are like that, where they may or may not have coverage at all the schools. There was a school that was they had contracted athletic trainers. They weren't necessarily staff, if I'm not mistaken. And so COVID was going around, people weren't able to come in, so they didn't have coverage.
Okay, so let's take it a step further. We know basketball and football season merge together come November.
They overlap, yeah.
Yes, they overlap. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Saturday. How in the world are you going to do a Saturday and if both teams are playing? Usually,
chances are you're just gonna have a workout, a practice, and when it's early, football season will keep going. Basketball season only in the beginning where you're starting to do those scrimmages and exhibition kind of games where they will overlap. I have like on the same day. Practices are definitely going to be a conflict.
Oh yeah, practices are
all that preseason stuff. They're definitely going to be a conflict, but games usually start
November. November is
right?
when you overlap. Yeah.
Right, they'll start to overlap, but regular season football is starting to
wind down. Yes,
it's starting to wind down, but there is definitely an overlap. And I do recall a time when we had to go out to Vegas. So I went, covered practice, then we went out to Vegas for a couple of days, did MGM Grand basketball tournament, Thomas and Mack, we did all that out in Vegas, and then immediately I had to get on a plane and go straight to Mississippi for a football game. So it's one of the things that led me to homeschooling my kid 2 years, because I had to go to work. So when my kid hit a certain grade, I pulled him out of school and I homeschooled him for 2 years.
Wow.
Because I'm a hands-on parent, and it was either I leave my kid behind or I take him with me. So
you took him with you.
I took him with me.
Wow.
So I mean, it's a commitment. Athletic training is different from every other profession that I can think of. It's parenting, it's mentorship, it's counseling, it's clinical, right? You got the clinical piece, but you're also an educator. You are their first point of contact. You are the person that they have to go to get their paperwork cleared when they first come in, physicals and all that stuff. We're responsible for those things. You're the first person that an athlete will see the second an injury happens. You're the first one to the field. You're the first one to the court, typically, right? Whether there's a team doc or not, at a collegiate level, even at a pro level, the team doc is not going to beat the athletic trainer to the field.
That's true.
It just doesn't. That's not what it is. So, and oftentimes in really, really situations where you have a really good physician athletic trainer relationship, that physician will say, well, what do you want to do? They'll ask the athletic trainer their opinion first and support that.
Okay.
So it's a really, really unique role. Those relationships last longer than the period of time that those athletes were under your care.
Okay.
You know everything. When when they are skipping class, when they are smoking, drinking, when they got somebody pregnant or think they got somebody pregnant, when they need to go to the free clinic, you know what I'm saying? You find out when grandma passed away, you find out you find out all those things because you're the person that they trust.
Okay.
And
man, that's
yeah.
All the intimate details, and a lot of times that's that locker room talk that you're talking about right there. And to that,
I mean, I have athletes whose parents, they're like, hey, you tell them, because I know they'll listen to you before they listen to me. Or it's a trusted position. So a lot of people just dismiss it as, oh, you're just taping angles, or you're just doing ice and just doing water. And it's so much more than that. Absolutely. It's so much more than that. And I think following these incidents that have occurred, and there's something that had happened at another university recently, the athletic trainers walked out. They walked out because they didn't agree with the treatment of their athletes.
Okay. Wow.
From the coaching staff. And so I think you'll start to see more of that, more silent protests, more, vocal protests about treatment, about pay, because the numbers of athletic trainers that are actually staying in the industry, I don't see them going up unless the pay goes up.
The pay's on. I mean, it's almost something has to be done, because when we start talking legal as well.
But when people staff, even when they staff events, they make sure they have security, they make sure they have concessions, they make sure they have merch, and they make sure they have refs. The athletic trainers usually the last thing they call for, and they call like 2 days before. You need somebody? Can you hurry up and find somebody? Can you build? And it has to be reversed. So my recommendation to event directors and event promoters, budget that out early. Like, put that in up front. If you're charging an entry fee per team, bump the price up. Bump it up $10 per team, $5 per kid, whatever it is. Bump that price up so you can cover that. And if you don't want to take it off of there, take it off concessions. Take it off the tickets.
Yeah.
Take it from somewhere, but it shouldn't be the afterthought.
Yeah.
Because you really want to protect yourself and your brand.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're one of those people who champion athletic trainers. So I appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you. There are a handful of people that if they call, I'll show up because they take it seriously. They're not going to water down. We can only give you this much. And then we want you to stay this long. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't even ask my contractors to work if I'm not going to be able to pay them well.
Yeah.
I just don't. I'm not even going to ask them to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the way it should be.
Or they'll barter and like, well, what if we do this and we give you some tennis shoes or some gear?
Yeah.
That draws people in the industry in the beginning. Oh, I can get up to the big game and I can go get this gear and I got a suitcase and a duffel bag, and after a while, like, then you got a whole closet full of stuff.
Yeah.
And you still don't have the income.
Yeah.
You're still not able to go on vacations. You're still not able to go do things. And some of it's not even pay. Some of it's just the hours because there aren't enough of us. And the assumption is we're there early and we're there late, that there's no one to take up some of that time. Right.
Yeah.
So if you're sick, you just kind of got to go to work anyway.
Yeah. So if someone's to watch the show and they say, hey, this is my passion, how can they get started? Can they come in as a student and, do some volunteer work to see if this is for them? What is your path into getting into athletic training to see or understand if this is for you or not?
So number one, don't necessarily look at the salary now as a deterrent, because the thing is really truly being able to be connected to people. That's a huge, huge piece of it. If you're not a people person, this is not it. So like, take your temperature now. If you don't like people, don't do this.
Okay.
That's number one. If you are at the high school level, if you're a high school student, at the collegiate level, a collegiate student, my recommendation is to always find someone to shadow. If there's a shadowing opportunity on your campus, do that.
Okay.
If there isn't an athletic trainer on your campus, you can always reach out to me and I may be able to refer you to somebody if you're not able to shadow me.
Okay.
I do create some opportunities for some of those mentorship, partnership, apprenticeship kind of scenarios for students, especially for young Black women. I really want them to be able to see the opportunities that are there. Women of color in general, but especially those students that desire to go to HBCUs, because there's no route for them unless they go to another school afterwards. Wow. And then if all else fails, you can go to the athletic training, our athletic training advocacy body, which is the National Athletic Trainers Association. Mm-hmm. And there are ways to connect with athletic trainers across the country.
Okay. Okay. And like you said, and I also wanted to speak this as well. Now, you said the average salary, for the ones that work college or high school.
That's an entry salary.
Mm-hmm. Now, the ones that do work for professional teams, I just wanted to put that out there, which is kind of the pinnacle after you've put in that work a lot of times to make it to a professional level. And let's just say the NFL or NBA. I have a childhood friend who works for the Mets, and he's been the trainer for the Mets 20 plus years now. So he does well.
I'm sure he does very well.
Yeah, he does
well. There's no cap when you're paid from private organizations. So let me be clear on that. If you're paid from a private institution, they can set the salary at whatever they want to. Public institutions are a little different. Mm-hmm. When you're at the collegiate level, they may have a scale. These jobs in this category are to be paid on this scale. Some of that's different. But the high school level actually, like in the state of Texas, they pay very well in comparison to other schools. I mean, other states. And some of that's because they pay you as a teacher first in a lot of situations, and then you get a stipend on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So you get all the full benefits plus a stipend. Now the schedules are a little different. It's not coming to work at 3 all the time, and like you may be there all day, but you may have more resources, and you may have a bigger staff where you can tag out, and somebody's on the early shift, someone's on the late shift. There's some more opportunities there, and there's more job security. Yeah, with that kind of job versus being hired maybe by a hospital or being a contractor. There's so many different ways to make money as an athletic trainer. Like my preference is to be a contractor.
Well, and so again, once you've established yourself, and I just want to keep bringing this up. Once you've established yourself, that contract rate can be attractive then, right? Once, like I said, I can only imagine if my childhood friend who works for the Mets decides to say, okay, once baseball season's over, I want to get a little bit of side cash. I can only imagine what his rate could possibly be, because he has that, he has that resume behind him.
He has that resume behind him. So he could demand a higher rate. He could demand a higher rate, most definitely.
Okay. So then,
but the instability in the market. So again, you can get a higher rate, but that doesn't guarantee that you'll have something all year. Or when you want it. So there's a plus and a minus to it.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I know I made it be about athletic training, but I really want to just impress upon parents that if they're high school parents here, or even if they're parents of college students, college athletes, post-grad athletes, if you want to ensure your children's health, then you advocate for athletic trainers. Absolutely. To be present.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying that somebody's going to be at every single practice. There's not enough of us. There's just not enough of us. But impress upon the staff, the faculty, whoever would make those decisions in hiring, to at least try to have them present when they're doing events. Okay. I'm a proponent of have them there all the time, not just games, practices too. But I'm being very realistic. There's a shortage.
Okay.
There's just a shortage. So at least when your children are traveling, try to make sure that there's going to be someone at the game.
Gotcha.
Tournament directors, referees. I mean, it's your duty. It's not really. It's not an option. It's not the thing you just. Well, I guess we're just gonna cut that part out. But you got a whole DJ.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point right there.
You got a whole live DJ and all the things that go with it, like life and death, entertainment.
Absolutely. So listen, and I think this is great. And, that's why I told you as time has continued to move on, instead of having you as a quick portion of the show, this is starting to morph into Dr. Erin Hassler's corner now, basically. But no, this is stuff that needs to be heard, because, from the time I met you and you start telling me stuff, and I was like, oh gosh, I never thought about that, or I sure didn't think about that. And for me, and I only speak for myself, when I leave, whether it be a person or whether I watch something online or on TV, if I'm scratching my head like, man, I think about that, need to tighten up, and even whether it be safety or whatever the case may be, or in my perspective of, just that other part of it, being an event director, you don't want to be caught, with some type of legal situation either. And, stuff happens. Like, and people have to understand anything can happen out there. Let's take, of course, there's security to take care of that part. But like I said, some of the smallest injuries we may not even pay attention to can end up being serious.
Yep. Yep.
And to your point, like you say, you're like, that's a little Ned K's going to be fine. And he may leave out of there. And because of your knowledge, if you may have caught it and said, no, he needs to go to the ER or to urgent care or whatever the case may be. Whereas
it's something small, like even stitches. Like, do you know you only have about 6 hours to get stitches?
Nah.
Right. You can't wait. You cannot wait. You have to go get them. You either have to go get them or have something glued up real quick, and some of that stuff won't be glued. Like little things. There's just little things that people dismiss. So see,
you know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's starting back up.
So if I don't get stitches in 6 hours, what is it? Infection or?
Well, the skin dries up.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna draw back. Then you're not gonna be able to connect it.
Okay.
I mean, you do want to get it clean, right?
Yeah.
But you got to be able to get it so that the skin will line back up. Otherwise, it's not gonna close.
Gotcha. Okay. Hey, another lesson for today for people that didn't know. Another lesson for all of us.
I mean, there's so much. I have to have the most random things in my head all the time, but it's useful information. But to most people, it's random stuff.
Yeah.
But athletic trainers think like this all the time. I walk in a room and I'm always like, where are the exits? Okay, if something were to go down, like, how do we get out of here? Okay. This is too close to the door. There's water by the exit. Somebody could slip and fall. Like,
those are valid points right there. That's stuff where it needs to be addressed. But a lot of times and I'm just being honest, from an event director, you're going in 100 different directions at the time. Yep. And you've been to my events, you'll be like, hey, I've been looking for you. I'm like, oh, I've been doing this, and this. And you're like, hey, what about this? I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm looking at you like, oh, okay. If you say yes, then yes. A lot of times, because number one, it's a trust thing. Like, if I didn't trust, that you were an experienced professional, then I'd be following behind you. Let me see what's going on. And for you, I'm like, okay, what needs to happen? Okay. And you're just saying, hey, I need this and this. Okay. All right. Done. Do what you need to do. But, you have, but that's because I know you, but you have some event directors that might want to micromanage you as well, because they may not know you. They don't know. And that's trying you out for the first time.
And that's okay. But I'm going to give them this. It's a numbers game. Do you want my license or do you not?
Yeah.
It's either you want my license or not. Like, it's called damage control.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. It's damage control. You don't go to the cop and ask them what they got on their test if they don't want security.
That's true.
You don't. You just see them standing there, or her, they're resting on the taser and on the gun, just sitting there by the door. Okay, but you didn't ask them what they got on their test.
Mm-hmm. That's
you didn't ask that referee what they got when they. Mind your business. Mind your business. That's it. Just I got you. Long as you got my invoice at the end of the day, we cool. I got you. I'm gonna make sure these kids are good. And I can't say that everybody's going to put that much thought into it, but I'm speaking the people that I know, the people that I pray that whoever is working is alert.
Yes.
Whatever event that they're working, that they're alert, that they're competent, and that they really want to be there because they're taking responsibility for somebody else's life.
Yeah. Or child.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's somebody in the stands. It could be anybody. As a medical provider, you have a duty to act. So it can be anyone, not just the people on the floor.
Okay.
I mean, I've had referees go down. I mean,
yes.
In football and basketball, I had them go down before. Had one go down and we couldn't call any emergency contact. Why? Because they had the fingerprint on the phone. Like he was out cold. Like we had to try to, now they got the face ID. What if you can't get to their face? Then what? What you gonna do? So.
And see that again, stuff. And again, stuff as an event director, that's the last thing on my mind, how to get into somebody's phone or emergency contacts. Because by that time, everything's rocking and rolling. And like when things are smooth, like your job is awesome when things are smooth. You know what I'm saying? But when things aren't smooth, it can go from smooth for you to, okay, now you got 4 injuries. You got injury on court 1, court 2, and court 3. And everybody's like, where's the trainer? And I've seen that.
Yep.
I've seen that at my events. Okay, this one needs a Band-Aid. This one just rolled their ankle. And there's somebody out there laying on the floor.
I got a system for a lot of that. I know how to, triage that kind of situation. That just comes from doing this for a really long time.
Yeah.
For a really long time. So, whenever you're working, if there are some people that know you that want that kind of assistance, just let me know. And I'd be more than willing to sit down with them and help them draft up a plan, especially as we're going into AAU season soon.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're going to have event after event after event. And I can guarantee you they're not looking for the athletic trainer first. They're looking for the venue first, the referees second, maybe security, depending on the requirements of the location.
Absolutely. And until it goes down, and you're like, oh man, this is, where's she at?
You should have had somebody. Oh, I wish I had seen you last week. We had I get that all the time. Man, I wish I had seen you last week. Yeah, I know.
And no, I mean, listen, I'm glad you're on my team. I say that any time of the day because, just watching to see how it happens, you're like, oh, okay. But I know when it comes down to it and happens, I'm like, oh, she over there in the corner. She usually sits in their little corner over there or wherever the table is, or, if the facility has a room, whatever you're comfortable with. Because for me, she's around. I know where she's at. And if I don't, then, I just text you like, hey, what quarter? You're like, oh, I'm on court 4. Okay, she's over there. And
yeah, I'm not sure way around. But I really appreciate you. I appreciate you for just being thoughtful, thinking about it and including it. From the moment we've talked, you've always wanted that to be a part of your experience and everything that you're putting on, all of the events that you're doing. You've always said that from the beginning. So I do appreciate that. And it's only gonna expand from here,
Yeah, that's why we got to talk about that.
We're gonna expand from here. So, I'll be doing some training courses, some for people that want to be, in the industry, that are learning about the industry, just to kind of educate them. But I'll also have some for professionals already licensed. Mm-hmm. To sort of move into this other niche, which is working with the pro athlete circuit. That's a different animal. That's a different kind of approach. Not the athlete being an animal, but just that kind of work is different. There's a lot of intangible stuff that's there that you can't pick up in a book.
Okay.
So those will be part of my academy.
Sounds good. Good. Well, this has been our first exclusive session with Sports Medicine Talk Only. And listen, this won't be the last. I mean, however this starts to morph, I'm all for it. If this ends up being a show where we do it once a month, but you're still going to come on this show in between coaches. Yeah, definitely. But a lot of times when we're talking and you mention certain things, I'm like, that's something for the show, or that's something for the show as well. Because sometimes it's just strategizing, and I may ask you a question, or sometimes it's we're talking about other stuff as well as your son or my son, about school since they're both seniors, and then bam, it just comes out like, hey, I got a question. What about this? And you'll be like, oh, this, and this. I'm like, I wonder how many other people that don't know that as well. And that's how this is all about knowledge. Let's just put it like this. And a lot of times, and me included, until you really started to put me onto this, I mean, you kind of take it for granted until you say, hey, this is kind of serious. This needs to happen. And I just want to, like I said, I want to do my part in spreading the word out. Like, I'm big on education and I'm big on this sports medicine injury prevention as well, because you see way too many kids at a young age going down with big injuries and they're out for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months. And there should be dialogue of how this could have been prevented.
Correct. I agree.
So this is why we use this platform to put it out there. And you know what? I don't care if one person takes heed to this knowledge and it prevents it. This is all worth it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I agree with you on that.
Definitely. So like I said,
this conversation going is going to be really, really important, long after, this football season and long after this basketball season. Like, this is something that really, really needs support. And honestly, if the funding were there, like across the board, if funding were really put into the right budget columns, you'd have more athletic trainers there. Most of us don't leave because we don't like it.
Yeah.
Most of us leave because we can't afford to stay.
Well, even past that, some of you leave because, worked. Jeez.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. If you're going to be paid well, you take a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right. And if you budget appropriately, then you can have more staff. So then I don't have to work 18 hours, 19 hours, 20 hours. I don't have to put my kid on my back. This one. Where is it? That one. Throw him on my back. Put him on my back when he sleeps. Take him into the office. Put him on a table. Make him eat in my office. Make him get dressed in my office. And take him to school and then pick him back up and then bring him back up there. And, where you don't have to do all those things, where I can follow my kid and go to his sports, and instead of guiding his sports selection to match my job.
Yeah.
It's a lot,
It's a
the reason we met is because I said enough.
Yep.
Enough. I'm going to follow my kid this year.
Absolutely. And again, things happen for a reason, and we met through a network. That's another important thing as well. And, I tell people all the time, I love this, this analogy that was brought with me. Your network is your net worth. A number of people came and told me that. And when I first heard, I was like, oh, it's a catchy little phrase. Until you're like, you know what? So
you start like investigating, like, okay, I might need to do this. I might need to do that. Who has this resource? Who has that resource?
Thank you. And that's perfect right there. Because like I said, I know for me, when it comes to this, I know you're a phone call away. And just like there's certain things I can provide, you're going to call me and say, hey, what about this, this, and this? Or then we start reaching out to people in Texas or reaching out to other people in Georgia. And that's how you start to grow as an individual as well, because if you don't know it, you know where to get the knowledge from.
Correct. That's going to be the key. And with that's my medical tip. You always want to go to the provider who doesn't claim to know everything. You want to go to the one who will say, I don't know everything, but I'm going to do what I can to find an answer for you. So that we're going to do that together. Like, they don't cut you out of the conversation. They include you in the decision-making in the process. So
I couldn't agree more. Listen, that's going to wrap up the show for tonight. Look, I'm excited for this, to see this to keep growing, because, like I told you, I said in due time, I told you, I said, you're going to end up having your own segment, because as more people start to tune in and listen to what you're saying, I'm like, hey, what did she say about this, that, and the other? I'm like, well, give her a call. There you go. And that's what this is about. And, to see your platform grow and, for me just to keep doing whatever I can to get this word out.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see it happen. And, I would say right now, let's do this once a month at least. I mean, again, you're not leaving, the regular.
Oh, no. However I can help you, I'll do that. You know that.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, this is your stage, and this is, this will probably start to get more views than my stuff in due time, because it's important, especially like you said, for AAU season. Oh my gosh, those kids are playing in a matter of 4 or 5 months. They're playing like 45, 50 games, and by August they are spent. And that last part of July is when those injuries really start to creep up because they're tired.
Yep. So to the post grads, really be mindful of what you're doing every day, what you're eating, what you're putting into your body, how much sleep you're getting. And when they're traveling, really, really how to recover, compression pants and foam rollers and enough water and vitamins. Because if you're a gym rat, you're not getting sunlight.
That's true.
You need that too.
That's a great point. Great point.
So I appreciate it. And however I can be of assistance, I would love to do that. So
absolutely. And we appreciate you being a family member of the show, not a part of the show, a family member of the show now.
Thank you.
We're going to keep preaching this word. And, for anybody that wants to get in contact with you, how can they get in contact with you before we let you go?
Okay, so you can go to, I got a couple websites, but they're connected. So goldmedaldoc.com, because that's me. or you can go to sportsfactory.com. And either one of them have platforms on social media. So you can go to Sports Factory on Instagram and Twitter. You can go to Gold Medal Doc and type that in. You can find me on Instagram.
In sports with the Z.
With the Z.
With the Z.
With the Z.
Like, I wanted to make sure. I don't want people calling me, I can't find it. Well, no, add the Z, brother.
Sports with the Z. Sports with the Z.
So listen, that's going to wrap it up for this show. And, for people that tune into this, whether it's live or whether it's through YouTube or with other channels, whether it's Twitter, because we also do this on Twitter Live, and you can go back and watch this as well. Thank you. And like I said, if you have any other questions, we'll be all available. You can DM or text me for you guys that know me, or like I said, Dr. Hassler made her information available. And yes, it's going to be my mission to push this to her, because I'm just the middleman.
You're like, I don't know the answer.
Yeah, if it's not a basic question, I'm either texting her or calling. Like, oh, I don't know. You have to ask her. So, and this is the whole goal to take advantage of her knowledge so we can prevent these injuries as well.
I would love to help with that.
Definitely. So that's going to do it for tonight. We thank you all for it. Was a great show, a nice hour-long show to talk about sports medicine anytime. So we'll be back next week, probably on Sunday or Monday, depending on my traveling schedule. We'll have some coaches in, and Dr. Hassler, if you want your 15 to 30 minutes of fame, it's there as usual.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No problem. So everybody take care. This has been Hoops Hitting Gyms. I'm your host, David Jones. Good night.
Good night.